So you're wanting to make a bowl, but you don't have a lathe. Well, today I'm going to show you how you can get a bowl done using nothing but the table saw and one jig. Just recently, my buddies over at Fish Over Chicks put out a video on how to do a bowl on the table saw. Although their way is a little bit different than mine, I commented under it, I can get it done with one less jig. So today, I'm going to show you how. First, we need to make a jig. I'm making this jig out of 3/4 inch birch plywood. I'll take some 4-inch leftover rips I have and get 3 of them cut to 16 inches and 1 of them cut to 22 inches. I'll take them over to the table saw and I'll describe the height of my fence and get these ripped down to whatever height that works out to be. I'll go ahead and take the top piece and describe some marks to where it's flush with my 2 sides. Here I'm marking out for where a notch will be cut in this left side piece that will hold a side arm. I'm going to mark the center of this left side piece, and then I'll mark the center of the side arm, which is at 3.5 inches. So I'll mark that at 1 3/4 inches. We'll use some CA glue as a temporary clamp, and we're going to pop a brad in his ass. I'm adding 4 screws into this arm for structural purposes. On one side of our sidearm, I'm going to mark the center and pull down 1 inch to drill a 1/4 inch hole because we're going to be using this 1/4 inch bolt as part of the jig. I'm going to be cutting 2 different size squares, one at 7 inches, marking the center, and then one at 9 inches. And that's just so I can use different size stock for different size bowls. And at those center marks, we're going to be drilling a 1/4 inch hole as well as 4 holes on both sides at 1 inch in from either side. That way I can fasten this plywood to the actual bowl. This will all make sense shortly. I've got a huge stock of 16/4 hickory that I'm going to get cleaned up and flattened out and cut down at 9 inches by 9 inches. Okay, so I've got my dado stack blade in just one of the dado stacks. I lined up my bolt with the apex of my saw, and I centered the bolt with the saw kerf. I loosely clamped my jig in place, and we're going to make some adjustments once I scooch my piece up under this jig. I'm adding a couple of 1.5 inch screws to attach this plywood to the bottom of my bowl. Lower your blade all the way. Now just go ahead and slide it up under the jig and insert this bolt, tightening down the nut just ever so slightly, adjusting your jig and clamping your jig, and then starting your revolutions. Raise your blade 1/4 of a turn every revolution that you make. Check your progress, and once you determine that you're lined up with center, go ahead and rock and roll this cut. Just be careful not to turn your blade too high after each revolution. That way you don't cause any kickback. I'm using a dado stack blade, so that's 7 1/4, and I've got a 9x9 bowl, so I know that I'm well safe away from any harmful injuries happening. Any size blade will work for this jig. You'll be left with a couple of saw marks, but just get those sanded down. And what I'm going to be doing with my bowl is making some designs in the side and then cutting some chamfers on the very bottom of this, just to give it a little bit of depth. I'm cutting a couple of 1/8 inch grooves on the side, and I put my saw on a 30 and cut toward the center of my bowl. And watch this thing come to life. There we have it. Now I could have cut this in a circle on the table saw as well and had a round bowl, but for the purposes of the video, I just wanted to show y'all how you can get a bowl on the table saw. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. And be sure to go check out John and Peter over at Fish Over Chicks. Drop them some love and subscribe to them as well. Skål.